This is Ivan, and Ivan is pissed, like you. Ivan is trying to get better at the game of chess. He buys all the latest books, all the latest courses, he watches all the latest YouTube videos, and yet this leaves him at the rating of around 1200, 1300, without the ability to get any better. And thus, he decides to do the only logical thing. I have to tell you, improving at chess as an advanced beginner from 1200 to 1500 is relatively very simple and easy. You need to understand how to fix your thinking process to do this. The reason that you failed so far at trying to get there is because you were, instead of trying to understand how to improve your thinking process, you're just consuming too much knowledge. So here's an action step that I want you to do right now, not after this video, right now with me. I want you to take a piece of pen and paper, and I want you to write the next few things. What I am going to say is because I am a chess player over the past 3 years. I've been playing online, in tournaments. I have here some very nice trophies that I've won, and I've also proved already in the past that I've passed already 1700 ELO, so I can show you what to do to get there as well. Anyways, and this is what I want you to write literally right now with me. What are my enemy's weaknesses? So really, I just want you to pause right now and write down these 3 sentences. They are going to be the basis for how we think from now on in chess as we move on towards becoming intermediates. We're going to go through each of them in this exact video, and it will change the way that you think in chess so that you could level up towards an advanced player. Write these right now. Now, to understand this, we need to talk a little bit about the concept of activity. Right now on the board, which knight is considered better? Now, obviously it's the knight on e5, but why is that? Is it because it's in the center? Is it because it's more progressed? Not quite. It is because the knight on e5 controls a larger amount of squares on the side of black. That's basically what that means. And the tutors and the experts and all of these say that knights on the edges of the board are slain or that are weaker. That's what it means. It means that they just simply control less squares than if they are placed on the center. This knight on e5 controls 8 squares compared to the knight on a1 that controls just 2. So of course this knight is better. Now, if you were white, then here's a question. Which knight would you move? You would of course move the knight on to b3. You want it to be more progressed towards the area of black, and you want it also to control more squares. That's why moving this knight is much better than this knight. It's important. It looks like it's simple, but this is actually the basics for chess that beginners just do not pick up on when they start, and that's why they plateau. Remember this is very important for us soon. I explained this concept to a friend of mine, and his rating just blew up. Like, it skyrocketed in like 100 points in a few weeks, and that was an intermediate player too. So this is very important to note. Now, asking the first question in our thinking process, we ask, what are my opponent's weaknesses? And I'll touch on this exact example. I'll move a few moves back so that you'll understand. So I'm white in this example, and I've played this against my own trainer, who's a grandmaster. He's black, and you're gonna see how he doesn't win immediately, but he slowly grinds towards victory. That's what usually stronger players do. So he plays e4, I play e4, he does c5, knight f3, e6, c3, d5, like normal opening, nothing too special. I do the move d4, knight f6, knight bd2, decides to take. Now, here's the thing. How should I take as well? Should I take with the knight, or should I take with the pawn? And I want you to think about this in your mind. If I take with the knight, I take my piece and I progress it towards the center. 1. I make a piece stronger, obviously. But if I move the pawn, if I take with the pawn like this, what happens is interesting. I have now 3 separated pawn groups. I have three separated pawn groups. So when he asks, what are my opponent's weaknesses? So I have this three separated pawns, and a weakness is a square or a pawn or a piece that are going to be hardly defended, that it's going to be very hard to defend them with other pawns. This pawn now is separated from all the other pawns. So now that is my weakness. It cannot be defended by others, and thus my opponent, black, is going to slowly but surely aim a place as much pressure as he possibly can at this d4 pawn. Thus it's going to soon fall, and he's going to then use this material advantage of 1 and convert it into a victory. That's how games happen in higher levels. You pick on a weakness of your opponent and you're utilizing it until the very end. So he takes bishop e7, bishop c4, just normal moves all the way. Queen e6, castle, castle e3, b6, bishop b2, bishop b7, q1, and you're gonna see slowly how my opponent, his idea is, I'm gonna bring you identify a weakness and you literally place as much pressure towards it. But once you identify it, you attack. I have 4 separated pawn groups, so all of my pawns are weak now, and this rook is going to join against this pawn, and this pawn, by the way, will help as well. Queen d3, rook c2, and I assume that by now you get the point. He identifies a weakness and he continues to attack it. That's the first question. Let's now move to the second one. That's also, by the way, just a quick reminder, you can always subscribe to this channel so that videos like this, they'll show you more. And then it's like you're watching a video that actually makes you think better in chess. So it's better than other channels, for example. Anyways, this example right here is the second example. It uses the second and the third questions that we have, which are, what is my least active piece, and how can I neutralize the pieces of my opponent? That's the question. Basically, remember that in the beginning of the video we have said we want to take pieces and progress them towards the center. Now it comes into action. We basically ask, what are pieces that are not doing much? They're not putting pressure into the right places. And we ask, how do we make them place that pressure? A short example, I've made the move f4 because now I have a strong pawn quadruple against my opponent. My opponent is still a little bit better than me because he has a bishop there, and this bishop on g7 is very, very powerful. So it technically still is better than me, because I just thought like we're gonna have to like storm this opponent with our pawns, because, well, otherwise it's gonna be he's gonna do the same for us, and thus I might lose. So b4, and here's the thing. Now I ask, what is my least active piece? And how can I make it more active? Right now, there is only one option that I can really think of, and it's this knight, because it's under threat. But how can I make this knight, which is under threat, more active? Well, the simple answer is I could move it to d5. And I do this because I think this knight will be more active. He will control more squares on the side of the opponent in here. He'll have a pressure towards e7, c7, f6, and b6. And thus he will just control more squares. It'll be more difficult for black to develop thus. Knight e5, rook to b8 happens, and here I think this rook is already participating in the attack. Basically, he's helping these pawns progress more. This rook helps these pawns progress more forward. Thus, moving the rook here doesn't really help him as much as it should. So using this thinking process, now we can also identify when our opponent does bad moves too, which is very important to be able to do that. I do the move f5. f5, and I just think I need to progress more towards the enemy king. That's how I'm going to win, after all. Knight e5 happens, and here I think he moved twice the same pieces, like the pieces that already moved into places that do not necessarily make them more active. Like this knight already aims at the center. Plus, in here, this knight blocks the array of the bishop. Hence, this move kind of has a contradiction in how it's going to make black more active. You see the point? That's when a move like this, progressing the knight, is bad, because it blocks his bishop, and when a move like this, which is progressing my knight, is good, because it doesn't do that. It just places more pressure. By the way, neutralize is very simple in this sort of thinking process. It's just the opposite of making a piece more active. It's making the opponent's pieces less active. It's very simple. Anyways, g5. And again, I just think I need to progress towards the enemy king. h5. And here I want to ask you, what is my least active piece as white, and how can I make it more active? Really, there are two pieces in here. I have the knight and I have the rook. If you have answered any of these, you are right. I've decided to move the rook from d to f1. Again, just supporting my pawns, because my idea is I need to rip these 3 pawns that black has, so that my pieces could get in. That's just the idea in order to checkmate. Rook f2 d1. Rook to e8 happens. Here I have to admit I've made a mistake though. I've made the move f6, and f6 is a mistake. I basically made here, when he moves his rook to e8, a mistake. This is a mistake because it allows him now to open up. So e takes f6, g takes f6, and the bishop we may take here soon. This bishop will move back and this pawn will now become a target. Basically, it's going to be hard for me to defend my strong pawn on f6. And in here, I was very fortunate because my opponent just decided to move the bishop back. Now this bishop that once was extremely strong is now powerless. Now I want you to pause and think what I should have done. Now it's not about how to be more active because we have done this already. Now I have my pieces here ready against the enemy king, and I want you to ask yourself what I should have done in here. How could I open lines against the enemy king, against these pawns, and thus progress the attack? What I should have done then after this move, we've made the move rook h to g1 and a6, and from here I wanted to think, I have all these pieces aiming at the enemy king. What I should do now? What I should have basically done is I should have sacrificed this knight, so knight to f4, and you see I aim against this one. So let's say rook to c8 happens, I just take a sacrifice here, knight takes, and I move to g6, and you see how now his lines are open against me, and I'll end up checkmating him. Just as an example, f takes d6, f7, knight takes on f7, rook takes here, let's say he moves, queen h6, and it's a mate very soon. So let's sum this up. What have we learned so far? We've learned the basic rules of activity, what makes a piece more active and less active. We have learned also how to think during an actual game. And here's precisely what I want you to do right after watching this video. Don't watch another one. Don't watch another chess video on YouTube from other channels. Don't watch any chess video right now. I want you to go into chess.com or Lichess and play using the thinking process that you have just written down. It's the exact same one that we have practiced, and I want you to be able to implement it, and that the thinking process will integrate into your mind. That's basically how we're going to make you better in chess. We're going to develop your thinking process. Now, if you are anywhere below 1300, this channel is made specifically for players like you to improve in chess, so you can subscribe to this channel and you will learn how to develop a stronger thinking process, and I'll see you in the next video.